Так слышно, да?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? I am honored to moderate this topic, the subject of the forum, which is very pleasant because recently there are more talks about tourism than events in this internal tourism. Nevertheless, something is still going on, and I'm happy as a child when people not only shouting "let's like Russia" do practical things like Bashkortostan, which is working on development of a new thing which is called Geopark Taratau. This is the subject of our today's session, and we are going to learn what is it, how to organize it, how to arrange it, and how the project is being developed. Olga Zakharova, Deputy Director General of an Agency of Strategic Initiatives, will start our conversation. Please take the floor. Good afternoon. Could you please turn my presentation on? On the one hand, we will talk about Taratau. On the other hand, Taratau is one of the tools of attracting tourists and development of the territory and the region, because it's a natural heritage facility. Each region has something to be proud of. I would disagree with Mikhail that we talk little about tourism. We talked about tourism a little before this year, and the majority of regions consider tourism as part of the Ministry of Culture, not Ministry of Economy. But actually, globally, tourism is social economic impacts. First of all, environmental tourism, which I would like to talk about today, which brings $1 billion a day from the point of view of global economy. I have presentation, but before I start it and talk about the global context of ecological environmental tourism development, I noticed that not all of the people understand what environmental tourism is. There are a lot of discussions on this topic. The term is part of legislation, and for me, ecotourism is visiting natural territories aimed at impressions, at research, and first of all, ecotourism is aimed at preservation of biological diversity. I will start global context of ecotourism development. I will compare Russia with other countries, and because Russia occupies 2.3 million square kilometers, you can ask, is it a lot or a little? It's a lot, because actually it's the area of Argentina. If we compare our country with Kenya, with the smallest country, we can see that the number of protected natural territories, Russia has 2 million square kilometers, and Kenya, 9 million is Russia and 2 million is Kenya. And revenue of Russia is $0.02 billion, and Kenya $0.4 billion, which is very weird. Why it happened? Because the special protected areas, which mean parks, reserves, monuments, natural monuments, were closed for public, and the key function of the territories was preservation of biodiversity, not development but preservation. In the United States, ecotourism started 200 years ago, and they say that in 200 years everything will be fine in Russia, but Russia doesn't have time to wait for 200 years. We need to do everything very quickly. But we have to remember about quality. If you take a look at the figures in the bottom, Canada, $1.7 billion is tax payment on ecotourism in Canada, which is 5 times more than expenses. And we know that special protected areas are financed from the governmental sources, and they are underfinanced. It's not only for Russia, but other countries. Other countries learn how to work with population, how to work with business, and use that to attract tourists and to raise funds. In Kenya, elephants bring a lot of money, and one lion also brings more than $1 million. An elephant and a lion gives more money when they are alive, gives more money than they are killed. In Kalmykia, when you kill an animal, there are many people who are involved in these illegal actions. There was a natural park, Черные земли, black lands, and the situation is changing in Russia. I will talk very briefly because we are limited in time. And if we take a look on Russia, it's the right column. Russia makes 10 times less than the US, for example. There is an economic effect, direct increasing of health, and decrease of expenses for cardiovascular expenses. When you start running, when you start jogging, you have different health and different results. The territory is divided by federal under the protection of the Ministry of Nature and regional. Each region includes both federal and regional territories, and coordination between federal authorities and regional authorities is missing. That is why when business comes and it is ready to invest in infrastructure on both types of territory, the mechanism of working with authorities is different, and the status of each natural territory is different. Business just goes mad how to invest. They have no idea about that. 238.8 hectares, ranked 1 in the world. 48% of the population never visited natural park. It was a result of the research by the Baikal Foundation. Probably people visited national parks, but they have no idea that these territories have the status of national park. 40% of the population of the Russian Federation lives within the 30 kilometers radius because the protected territories are usually located far from large cities. And these are the settlements, the locals who can be involved in the economy of the regions and development of the territories. What is the opinion of Russians? Experience in ecotourism. 50% say they have no experience at all. And the first reason of traveling is desire to see unique natural objects. What does it mean? When we talk about ecotourism, we first of all have to answer the question, why? Why do we want to establish ecotourism on a certain territory? It's worth noticing that not all the natural territories are suitable for ecotourism. There are territories which are aimed at biological diversity preservation, and we should know let tourists there. And there are territories which have the capacity, and they should attract tourists and educate so that people understood the value of the region and what the value is exactly. But in order to attract tourists, you need to see this potential, and this potential is in unique objects. 12% of Russians visited natural reserves and parks within 3 years. You can say that it's fine. But if you compare with the US, for example, the population visits natural parks 4 times a year. When we talk about the key conditions and prerequisites for developing ecotourism, we talk about barriers, as I said, because there is no coordination between the regional population authorities, no master plans which will form a cluster. And when the territory is developing and the neighboring territories are developing, international experience proves that the territory and commercial infrastructure should be developed on the neighboring territories. I mean territories which are next to the reserves, to the natural parks. Why? Because the natural territories have very serious status of protected area and many things are prohibited. At the same time, business is intending to be present on these territories without understanding that if the business is very close to it, you cannot draw with protecting circle with a chalk like in Catholic Church. Or what is important for tourists? View from the window. It doesn't matter if it's a territory of exactly the park itself or the next. Quietness, calm atmosphere, boat, clean water of the lake. This experience, because tourism is selling impressions. If we don't learn how to create impressions, we can talk a lot about values, about the wealth of our country, about interesting objects. We need to focus on planning of the territories and on preserving of the territories. And initially, the US followed the principle of letting business to these territories, but now these businesses are repurchased by the government and they're trying to expand the borders of the protected areas in order to provide preservation of these territories. We started ecotourism as an agency of strategic initiative in 2019. Initiative was agreed by President Putin, and it's a surprise that everything started with Bashkiria. I came to Bashkiria. I met the director of National Park Bashkiria, Vladimir Kuznetsov, and I started asking him, Vladimir, show me the documents which are the basis of the system of special protected territories. And Vladimir showed me some very small brochures, 10 pages each. You have no information from them, even if you read them 5 times, because the wording there is absolutely useless. Maybe one day they were useful, but now it's not. That is why I realized that we need to attract experts. There are only few of them because we are in the very beginning of our way. It's very important to study international experience. And we can have critics, but it will be the cornerstone. We published a book called Inspiration. Why did we publish it? Not to say, look how cool is that. We don't have anything like this. We have many parks where you want to go, but we have no idea about this park. And it's the 6th book about Russian special protected territories. But it's very important to take them to the level which will be a very good example on best practice. This book allows to determine the value of national territory. And the 2nd book is dedicated to social programming, which increases the tourism traffic, including the anthropogenic load. People say, okay, give us a formula. We need a formula how to calculate this traffic. There is no formula. It's just the mind, just common sense. In nature, it's impossible to study nature using maths. That is why all you need is your brain and to understand how to work with the tourist flow. And the 3rd book is Functional Organization. Number 4 is dedicated to typical infrastructure solutions. 85 solutions are presented there on basic infrastructure and 35 solutions on commercial infrastructure, including models, which is very comfortable for both business and authorities, because globally we do not have any practices, aesthetics on the territories, understanding of budget planning and how it can be multiplied and scaled up. And of course, the manual on waste processing, waste treatment, and it's a step-by-step manual. Brand territories. There are 4 examples. Devil's Tower in the US. Why? Because it's very similar with the Taratao. It's a sacred place for local indigenous Indians, and the tribes are the guides for tourist groups there, and establishing this territory. They provided a very unique mechanism of protection of the locals, because this territory became famous when Steven Spielberg shot his movies there, and a lot of tourists went there, and the territory is attended by 500,000 people. What was the problem? The territory was established, and at that time nobody could imagine such a traffic. This is what a warning for Taratau. You need parking, you need transportation, which allows to reduce the number of parking lots. You have to provide for all of that. And as soon as you start promoting this place, in 3 years, all the capacities will not be enough. That is why you have to pay a lot of attention when designing these spaces. And the second example is a forest in Bavaria, Bavarian forest. It's a tourism cluster and a driver of regional development. It has very rich educational problem. For the first time, people came there not to be trained, but to observe nature and animals. Animals live in natural environment, and there is interactive. They work with business. They have educational program for both students and business. They make a lot of money. It's a very good example when a territory can earn money, and the regression part, the part where you can do something, is 1.7% of the total area in terms of touristic activity. And the number of tourists, 3.7 million annually. Ras National Park is the third example. It's a maritime park. It was established thanks to the request of the locals because the territory was degrading. There was a lot of waste, and this place is very attractive. And there are old buildings which are transformed into hotels. People and tourists need unique impressions, and they come there for these impressions and this experience. Their program is very diverse, different formats on eco-sustainability for students, for kindergartens. They start working with children. Верхняя Lake in Canada, which is very similar to the cave. It's a very good example. That's a good practice, which is also adoptable for Bashkortostan. All the commercial infrastructure is located in the neighboring areas. Please pay attention to these red chairs. If you type this hashtag in Instagram, you will see many people taking pictures on these chairs and posting that in internet, promoting the territory by that. The red chairs are always located at the best observation desks. I believe that Bashkortostan should also join this international hashtag, and similar chairs should be located to unite international community. And Jacques-Yves Cousteau, traveling here, said that it was the most beautiful yacht which sank. It's an underwater museum. Next to each fragment, there are arrows, there are some subscription. You travel in this museum. What are the challenges of ecotourism? They are very simple. You all know of that. Access is not always a disaster because many territories are unavailable, and it's an advantage, not a disadvantage. They should be unavailable. Many territories require availability. Unregulated touristic traffic leads to anthropogenic catastrophes, which after that we can just say goodbye to these territories. Within these 2 days, I traveled 2,000 kilometers in different transport means. I believe that this situation can also happen in Remel because people from Orenburg, from Bashkiria travel there, from Chelyabinsk region, and it's a kind of mecca. It's a seat of power for many people, but its capacity is not unlimited. You have to pay attention to that. It's very popular among tourists, but if you continue promoting that, you will have the negative effect. The territories are not involved in the economy of the region. And of course, lack of information, lack of awareness. Everybody got used that there is nothing interesting in the region. There is beach, tourism and leisure, and that's it. We started Russian competition on ecotourism development. 85 regions take part in that. The competition lasts till the 10th of July. That is why we are confident that Bashkiria will apply to participate in this competition and will enter the top 10 territories with high potential development of ecotourism and will be the best practices and example. Within the competition, there will be a special training accelerator program where we will provide financial models, calculate economic impacts, and it will allow territories to plan in details the development of the territories. Based on the results, we'll provide master plans which increases investment activities because business understands what land plots are available, where the commercial infrastructure can be placed. Complex approach to the development of territories allows to integrate the territories into the economy of the region, attraction of investment, funds. It allows to establish the commercial infrastructure with necessary quality. You can download this presentation and get familiar with them. These are the brands of Bashkiria. Will be attractive for tourists, like Shihan Taratau, like Kinderlinskaya Cave, Sakaska Cave, and Hirmel Mountain. I wish everybody to be oriented of nature, but don't forget it's fragile.
Thank you, and right now from Greece we will have Mr. Nicholas Zouras, the president of the CEO of Geoparks. Good day, Mr. Zouras. Do you hear the interpretation?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry.
Do you have translation?
No.
Do you have translation from Russian? No.
No.
Okay. Did you find us on the map?
Yes.
Yes, okay. We are talking about a new Geopark in Bashkiria. And of course, people who are involved in this work dream to be part of international system of these parks. What is important to consider, what is important to take into consideration when we start this job here in Bashkiria? What is your advice? What are the basic things necessary to realize at the beginning of the project?
Okay. Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very happy to join you in this international urban forum, speaking about the territories of the future. And really, we strongly believe that geoparks are the UNESCO Global Geoparks are the territories of the 21st century. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate and to be with you today. Well, we all know that it's important to protect our planet. And geoparks are just wishing to reconnect the human communities with the Earth. For us, Earth heritage is one very important part of our natural heritage. And unfortunately, in many parts of the world, Earth heritage is not so well protected and managed till now. In the picture, you can see one of our flag geoparks is the Ngorongoro World Heritage Site and UNESCO Global Geopark in Tanzania. Having this in mind, UNESCO since 1991 tried to support the protection of geological heritage, and indeed with the participation of many scientists from Russia, we had the International Declaration on the Rights on the Memory of the Earth in 1991. Following that declaration, in 2004, we managed to have the first global Geoparks network, a network of 25 members. And in 2015, UNESCO accepted the creation of the UNESCO Global Geopark as part of the International Geoscience and Geoparks program. Last year, we celebrated 15 years of this Global Geopark network, which has 146 members in 41 countries. 74 are in Europe, 60 in Asia and Pacific, 7 in Latin America and Caribbean, 3 in North America and 2 in Africa. And just in 10 days, we are going to announce the new UNESCO Global Geoparks. And among them will be the Yangan Tao from Russian Federation. So we have to wait a little bit more in order to celebrate the first Geopark in Russian Federation. With this, it will be the dream that started in Europe almost 20 years ago, to have a network that will cover the whole Europe from Atlantic to the Urals. It will be a reality. So geoparks are just a new innovative concept which uses the protection of Earth heritage and the management of Earth heritage together with our natural but also our cultural heritage as a new tool for sustainable local development. In geoparks, we use networking and collaboration, sharing of know-how in order to support regions everywhere in the globe in order to have a better future. Geoparks must be single, unified geographical areas where sites and landscapes of international geological significance are managed with a holistic concept of protection, education, research, and sustainable development. What we care about the geopark is, of course, the definition of their territory, the population that lives there, all kinds of heritage, natural and cultural, the socioeconomic characteristics of the area, which we take into account in order to speak about sustainable development, the accessibility of the area, and of course the existing infrastructure. Using these geopark characteristics, the management body of a geopark should include staff, including geoscientists, should have an adequate budget in order to deal with activities that will lead to the sustainable development, develop partnership and networking, both at the local, the national, and at the international level, will enhance site of interest, even those who are not so well developed till now, and they will include them in the management plan and develop infrastructure and activities. And of course, we will have a continuous monitoring and review in order to deal with the natural and cultural heritage managed in an holistic way. We do use the heritage which are included in the geopark territory with an holistic approach in order to support local community, which is our human capital. Having a bottom-up approach, this means that we are working with the communities and we're trying to engage in local communities, to, having always in mind that we need to develop in a sustainable way. The geopark heritage includes the landscape, sites of aesthetic value and cultural also landscapes, the geological heritage sites, which are geosites, rocks, fossils and minerals, and landforms, the areas of ecological value with rich biodiversity, habitats and protected areas, and of course the cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible. Geoparks include outstanding landscape. This is an example from Haute-Provence, UNESCO Global Geoparks in France, or in Rinjani Lombok in Indonesia, where we have outstanding landscapes. Sites of ecological value, here we are in Cutralcura UNESCO Global Geopark in Chile, in the Andes, where we have a fantastic ecosystem in accordance with a fantastic landscape. This is the Silene-stone forest in China, again a very famous geopark, but also geoparks host landmarks in Earth's history and life evolution. This is the Yanqing UNESCO Global Geopark in China with the footprints of dinosaurs. But geoparks also host unique natural ecosystems, from the conifer forest in the Rokwa Geopark in Finland, close to the Arctic, up to the mangrove forest in Langkawi Geopark in Malaysia, or in the beautiful and important ecosystems of the Andes in Colca and Volcanes de Andagua, but of course also rich cultural heritage like this one, the archaeological site of Paestum in Cilento and Vallo di Diano UNESCO Global Geopark in Italy, or the famous monastery in central Catalonia UNESCO Global Geopark inside a very famous granitic landscape with peculiar shapes and also high geological value. And also the Mogao Grottoes in Dunhuang UNESCO Global Geopark in China, where we have the paintings in the grottoes, especially element of cultural heritage. In front of us, geoparks are facing new challenges, how to implement and work towards the implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We have several challenges for geoconservation. You asked me before what we can do. Of course, we should develop systems for geoconservation to protect and enhance our geological heritage resources, but also to work on nature conservation, to protect our ecosystems, to protect habitats, to build community resilience on natural disasters and climate change, to work on geoeducation and geotourism towards the sustainable development, and also to work for the visibility through the promotion of the achievements and benefits for the local communities, especially in rural areas. We share best practice in the protection and conservation of geological heritage. This is an example from Terra Vita Geopark in Germany, or this is a geopark in situ museum where the dinosaurs have not moved, but they remain in their original position in Zigong UNESCO Global Geopark. We also work on biodiversity protection and enhancement for raising awareness, protect biotopes, mapping habitat use, restore wetlands and reforestation. This is one of our flag projects in Adamello Brenta UNESCO Global Geopark in Italy, where we have the restoration of the ecosystem, and again the project about the protection and reintroduction of brown bear, or the reintroduction of oriental white stork in Sanin Kaigan UNESCO Global Geopark in Japan, from an area where the oriental white stork has been completely extinct. Now we can see, due to the new techniques that the geoparks are introducing, we have the reintroduction of the oriental white stork. Geoparks work with environmental education in Geopark. This is an example from Finland. And of course, they organize youth camps This is one in Moscow Arts in Germany, in the border between Germany and Poland, where we have youths from different parts of Europe celebrating their natural and cultural heritage and share good practice. This is a visit in Europe from the China University of Geosciences, that they built a camp in Lesbos UNESCO Global Geopark in Greece, and we use such activities in order to help universities to use this unique heritage in order to share all together and enhance this unique heritage with all the globe. Geoparks are also developing geotourism, a tourism that respects the natural heritage, but also the well-being of the territories. And we are working together to support each one of our members in a global network, which is always looking to the future. Geoparks are territories of resilience, and we understand, especially in this difficult period of COVID-19, how important it is to work at the global level and share our activities and improving the living condition of the local communities. So Global Geoparks Network is welcoming the first Geopark from Russian Federation, the Yangantau Geopark, and we believe that working together, we are supporting the development of the UNESCO Global Geopark as a quality brand and a brand for the future. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much also. Салават Нафиков, председатель.
Salat Afikov, chairman on the State Committee of Bashkortostan Republic on Tourism. Is Teretao a part of your vision of tourism development? And do you think it will become the locomotive which will drive development of your land as an attractive destination for the Russian tourism in general? First of all, I would like to welcome everyone on this wonderful forum. I've been in the first section and we were discussing the territory developments, parks. What can I say? Of course, Teretao is a very interesting site, and we rely on that from the point of view of tourism. A great job has been done by scientists, for example, and the administration of the park. Tourists visit the park, but Geopark is not only tourism, it's first of all, it's people, it's territory. That is why for us it is very important to have such territories like Teretao, protected areas, caves, etc. To preserve all these objects is our task, and we need to learn how to work with this resource and how to apply this potential without distracting it. Unfortunately, many regions already have negative experience. They have broken a lot of things. There are many examples. Unfortunately, it's a very common practice. We are lucky with Teretao. We have many natural monuments, Teretao and caves. As my colleague said, she witnessed the parks like Zilim Park in Bashkiria, and they are developing. We need to use the same methods for developing other parks. And of course, Teretao is one of them. One of the key anchors will be the attraction. I believe that it will be not just an attraction for the tourists, it will be a driver, a locomotive for developing local economy, for the people who live next to this natural legacy object. They will have an opportunity to establish farms. They will become tour operators and guides. And I believe that they are lucky. You should buy apartments and live next to Teretao. I totally agree with you. We are talking not only about tourism, but about development of the territory. And the territory, first of all, is economy. We need to learn how to work on this territory, applying the resources, how to earn money, and then everything will be fine. Everything will be like it should be. And there will be funds which will come to budgets, and people will make money. This is where we go. This is what we started it. Aynur Salmanov, Director General of Teletao Geopark. Can I ask you to tell us about wonderful perspectives, but first of all about what you have, what each of us could see there if we go to Teletao, and what is the problem, what are the impediments in terms of development of this place. Thank you very much. Once again, good afternoon, dear participants of the forum. I would like to thank our foreign participants who found time to join us at this event. Salavat said, and other colleagues also said, that support of local population within the territory of the Geopark, it's very important. It's one of the key priorities of our work at the park. In general, allow me to tell that Geopark is a whole territory, united territory, managed on the basis of education, protection, and sustainable development. If we discuss location and area of the Geopark, could I have my presentation on the screen, please? Teletao Geopark is located in the heart of Eurasia, as we can say, in the very heart of our republic. The area is more than 4.5 thousand square kilometers, and the borders are located in the territory of 4 districts of our territory. Polycentric position of our Geopark is one of the key principles, as you can see on the presentation. Each of the key attraction center has its own function. If we talk about Shehan Teretao, which is very famous, it's a cultural and festival platform. The Zilim is a natural park and recreation base. Krasnosorsky Spa Center is a healthcare center, and other centers. Geopark Teretao is unique from the point of view of concentration of natural, historical, and cultural objects. In figures, territory of the Geopark has 155 natural facilities, 25 specially protected objects of federal significance, 112 geological objects, etc. The key objects, of course, are Shehan Teretao and Yuraktao, and geological pit, geological quarry, which is internationally famous, attracting scientists. And Shehan, which is famous, is 300 million years old. It's reefs formed in the shelf sea waters in ancient times. It's a one-of-the-kind object, natural object, which is above the sea level. And Teretao is famous as sacred place since the 4th century before Christ. If we talk about the quarry, it's the first object which is called golden nail, which is example of calculating of age of the rocks of ancient periods. Talking about the Geopark, we shall mention its biological diversity. There are more than 32 endemic and 32 relict types of plants. 62 types of plants are within the Red Book of the Republic of Bashkortostan. 19 of them are included in a Russian Red Book. And of course, the fauna is very diverse. 32 species are with subject of the Red Book of the Republic, and 19 are protected on the global level. They are within the Red Book list of the International Nature Protection Agency. Territory of the Geopark is a platform of scientific projects with international importance, which were mentioned by my colleagues. There is a support of UN programs and Global Ecological Foundation, which conducted research on peat application aimed at reduction of emission of their carbon emissions and prevention climate change. This year, Geopark Taratao is planning to continue the global climate change research together with our colleagues from Global under support of the Russian Geographic Society. Together with the institutions and the research in universities, the studies will be continued at the territory of the Geopark. Geopark is not only amazing nature, unique fauna and flora, but also historical and cultural heritage, which we can be proud of. 124 objects of cultural heritage, 36 monuments of history, and a lot of cultural monuments. But the principal wealth is people. It's very important. Many people mentioned that today, my colleagues, during their presentation. And the Geoparks preserve their traditions, their ethnic identity. They respect their history and they adore their nature. These people are very active. They are willing to take part in the development. Craftsmen and musicians, teachers, businessmen, tour guides. During last week, we, together with our scientists, traveled in many districts interviewing people in all 4 districts. We conducted about 134 interviews with the local population to learn their opinion, to understand what they expect to see on the territory of the Geopark. And of course, all that will be taken into account under formation and further development of the territory. Administration of the Geopark conducts information awareness works among the local population and pays much attention to educational programs and routes, touristic routes, attracting local population. Also, there are guided tours for school pupils, both educational and weekend with geologists. On this slide, you can see one of such tour with participation of not only children from these local settlements, but also their parents. We develop partnership network in the Geopark. At the territory of the Geopark, we have a lot of active entrepreneurs who are not only developing their business and provide a lot of services, but also creating jobs for the locals. Many of you probably heard about the shaman cabin natural, very tasty chocolate, which is also made on the territory of the Geopark. Like your beach chocolate or honey produced by the local farmer who takes the prizes on the local exhibitions and on international exhibitions. All these services are provided on the territory of the Geopark. We will support them, promote them, and attract more active entrepreneurs. Each guest of the park will have an opportunity to learn more about traditions which are ancient, which have ages, and to try local Bashkirian cuisine and to participate in touristic activities, to walk on one of 10 exciting routes. Our task is to develop and promote Geopark, pay attention to nature preservation, to develop infrastructure, educational programs for school children and locals. Our website provides for an opportunity to read information about the Geopark, and there is always link for local entrepreneurs who can register, and after that they can provide their services or sell their products, which will be available on our website. Each tourist could come to the territory of the Geopark, learn about that, and to contact the entrepreneurs. One of the example is the camping in Yurta. Yurta is the national cabin, which is implemented next to the mountain Talatau, which is such an example of such cooperation. At the territory, these yurts will employ the locals who live next to this place. Of course, we have much work to do to develop our Geopark. Today, we are preparing the profile documentation to join the global Geoparks network. We believe that it will contribute to the promotion of Geopark, and it will allow us to declare our park globally. We have a very good team experience in preparation of such documents and portfolios. When we applied for the Yangantao Geopark, we regularly consult with Yangantao Geopark and with our scientific community. Many people know our colleagues who present here, our institutions of geology and biology, history of language, which joined us online. Alfred Rashitovich is our senior partner who tells us how can we do it better. I believe that having such a team, we will have the best of success. And under support of our Republican government, first of all, the head of the Republic, we will achieve the targets. And taking advantage of this presentation, I would invite all the participants to visit Talatau. We will be happy to welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, but I do not understand it perfectly well. Do we have the Geopark as the network right now, or are we talking about some separate entities located on the territory, which is planned to become a Geopark? It already exists right now. We have various routes and paths which are used by our tourists. We have official website of Geopark where you can find the information on it. There are also entrepreneurs who are already working there. We already met lots of locals, and we are still holding meetings with locals, and they are working as guides. Well, you haven't answered my question. What actually prevents you from developing this Geopark? We understand that currently one of the main tasks ahead of us is the development of infrastructure, creation of comfortable conditions for the tourists, in order for the Geopark to attract tourists just from Bashkortostan and from the whole world alike. So for the tourists to come to our Geopark and to be willing and to be desiring to get back to our Geopark more and more. I would like to add something to what Ainur has told us. I think that information is the problem in here, because not too many people really know what the mountain Taratau is, but if we are planning to make great PR for it, so definitely we will have lots of people coming there. Please, Ainur, promise, if people are going to come, put some toilets there, which would show respect towards people. So, and because if there won't be any toilets, it won't be interesting to business. We want to have our identity. We want to respect each other. And please promise to me personally, with all these people watching and hearing you, in order for me to come to that Taratau and to see that toilet and not to be afraid of even entering it. I think that's one of the main problems here, because this is something which actually was a bad thing for me, because I saw the mountain and it's magical. It's absolutely tremendous. But as soon as I entered the toilet, I wanted to run away from this mountain as far as it is possible. So the toilet is the first problem, really. Well, honestly, I've been nagging Ainur about those toilets for quite some time already. No, really, because when we're talking about yurts, those national houses of Bashkir people, I told Ainur on and on that there has to be good toilet. because we already have good water there, so it's running there, and we already have cafes and various food stores and so on. So guys, come on, what's the problem? Bio toilets is not a problem. Okay, I would like to add something. So yes, my colleague is going to build up on what I'm going to tell you about the concept. Of course, we have everything in stock, so we have projects on the toilets. When are you going to do this? This year? No, not this year. Come on. We're spending too many years to do this. So let me send you some money from Moscow. Put 2 toilets there, please. You will give me that money back after you get tourists. In August we will have toilets, I guarantee it. Okay, let's wait until August. But please, no blue booths. Because when you are building infrastructure, when you are attracting business which is starting to do this, your main task as a person who is responsible for this territory, who is managing this territory, is to do so that the mountain should visually be the most important part of this whole space. And these blue toilet booths shouldn't be something which actually spoils the whole view. That's all about aesthetics. Toronto has a great way ahead of it, but you need to work faster, because all of us want to see this wonderful mountain. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 17 more minutes and 3 speakers. Please be concise. Natalia Lukashina, head of the projects of developing Toronto project. Please, let's give it a try. Make this dialogue fruitful and not only informative. You have a great chance to say what actually prevents you from doing a great job. Good day, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm not going to be talking about some things which prevent us, because I'm going to be talking about our plans. I'm at the head of the project group. Ainur has told us what we already have on the territory of the Geopark, and I would like to tell you about our plans for development of the park within the foreseeable future. The main treasure of our Geopark is the people, as was mentioned before. They are helping to preserve the legacy. And when we were talking about the developing of infrastructure, we understood that the main principle of designing should be the involvement of people into this process. I'm talking about entrepreneurs and locals. And quite often, they actually involved us in some projects. We created workshops and so on. So during the quarantine and lockdown, we met online. We have a special platform in various social networks, social media, where we share our ideas, and we already have a concept of creating the Geopark, and almost every solution, I'm talking about location of media centers, eco farms, tourist bases and locations. Everything has been discussed with locals from the point of view of comfort, safety, identity and rationality. Because we understand what has to be done and that it has to be done fast. That is why we came to conclusions, rather fast conclusions, not 3 years in the future conclusions, but the decisions that could be made and implemented here and now. And if we're talking about here and now, we already hold procedures on leading the water channels to Zhehan, and I think that infrastructural problems are going to be solved. Besides architectural problems, we have devised the system of navigation of Geopark. I'm not talking about only the signposts, which are already there and so on. Thanks to our active work from Salavat and the whole Committee on Tourism, we have them appearing right now already. We already build the informational stands created by Institute of Geology and Biology and Institute of Russian Academy of Sciences, workers of the Geopark, architects and illustrators. We have a great team, actually. The main task is, in this case, is educational and inspirational activity. Each location, besides Toronto, because it is a complex entity, so it's natural, it's historical, it's geological entity, we will have various stands with various information there. And we had a task to speak in shorts, and I personally have a task to speak in shorts. I would like to point out that many travelers are already fed up with promoted touristic entities and places. Everybody have visited all of those places, and we really believe that in order for them to have a comfortable and interesting experience of traveling across our geopark, which is unique and unknown to them, we need to develop infrastructure, and this approach is going to lead the geopark to the international arena. Thank you for your attention. Are you a worker of the geopark? Could you please take a look at me? So please tell me, what is the main obstacle which the park faces? You don't have money, you don't have people, you don't have water, you don't have toilets, you don't have weather. What exactly do you need to be happy? Everything that you mentioned sometimes is actually occurring in life of any large entity, of any large organization. We all understand this. But me, as an architect, I see the problem in the networks, the engineering networks, water, electricity, quite often, really. In some locations, the problems are solved and solved rather successfully. For example, Krasnoussorsky Sanatorium. But it's been there for many years, for decades. It has been functioning for quite some time already. And there are locations which have to be developed. Well, come on, there is a federal program of developing tourism, which is not that demanded due to various reasons. And in particular, because it presupposes development of infrastructure which is not needed by everyone. Did you try to apply to that program? Yes, we are now developing the application. We are planning to apply for this grant. We are planning to apply to the competition organized by MyC, and there are incentives from the administration of Geopark, and it is precious that we have incentives from private citizens. They apply for grants, or maybe scientists who are applying for various competitions, and they are already taking prizes and first places, which helps us to develop Geopark.
I would like to give the floor to Boris. Are you here? Director in charge of Central Asia and Eastern Europe of International Union of Protection of Nature from Serbia. As far as I understand that you speak Russian. Yes, I understand a little, unfortunately. I will speak English today. Do you have any presentation? Yes. Could you please answer the following question? Unique natural territories require special protection. This protection requires financing, requires money. Tourists can bring that money, but presence of tourists is a menace for natural territories. Have you managed to find a unique, universal recipe, solution, how to maintain this balance, the need for financing of geoparks, and desire to develop the tourism in a manner to avoid damage to nature? Or there is no universal solution, and every time you have to think over the customized key.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so so the gold standard is that there is no one-size-fits-all recipe. The truth is that there are lots of experiences, as a global experiences, and regional and local experiences. So basically, one of the basic rules of developing sustainable tourism in protected areas is that it has to fit to the local context. But what I've seen through from the previous speakers and presentations, I can see that there's quite a lot of it has already been applied. But let me just share my few slides that I've prepared for you that try to shed some light on what tourism in protected areas is, the way how we see it. So first, a little bit of background. So I'm Boris Erg, I'm Director of IUCN Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And you can see on this little map how big our region is. So this is the biggest geographic region in IUCN. And IUCN, already mentioned today, it's a global, it's a knowledge-based organization that sets many standards in nature conservation and around nature conservation. And it's a membership organization, and I'm very pleased to say that the Russian Federation is a member of IUCN, and we have a few civil society organizations as IUCN members. Moving to the subject, as being already said, IUCN is a knowledge-based organization, which means actually that IUCN itself, who I represent, but also more than 10,000 experts associated with IUCN in one of the 6 expert commissions contribute to that knowledge development. And here you can see just a few of our knowledge products or global conservation standards that we have developed. We also try to publish in Russian. As you can see also that we have this guideline developed together with UNESCO on how to manage World Heritage Sites. It's one of the flagship standards. But also IUCN is behind the global categorization of protected areas, so which basically divides protected areas in 6 categories. In Russia, you have also Zakaznik and Zapovednik, which is quite similar and compatible to that. But the point here is that each protected area category sets certain management objectives and defines how the protected area will be managed, including how it will be visited, how tourism and visitation will be developed. And here is also one of the recent publications on tourism and visitor management in protected areas, and I hope that we will be able to translate it as well in Russian. The expert group that I would invite you to consider maybe joining is TAPAS, so-called, is Tourism and Protected Area Specialist Group. So that specialist group is comprised of experts who work on tourism in protected areas, and they represent protected area manager, local authority representatives, NGOs, decision makers, academia, and so on. So basically, it's quite a diverse group of people who were concerned with tourism in protected areas. There is a definition, of course, because otherwise it wouldn't be IUCN without a definition. So what we promote as, and what we stand for as sustainable tourism in protected areas is such type of tourism that basically takes full account of its economic, social, and environmental impacts, values, opportunities, of course. And it addresses the needs of visitor, the tourism industry, and of course, environmental issues, which are always behind protected areas as the long-term goal, and local communities. And I've heard some of it in previous presentations, and I have to say that basically what has been shared today is pretty much along the lines of what the definition of tourism in protected areas is. Of course, there are opportunities and challenges, some of it being already mentioned, infrastructure, for example, but it also provides a lot of opportunities, because it involves communities, involves a large group of stakeholders. So there is a community of support that backs that tourism in protected areas. It actively involves visitors in management. It looks into impacts, and of course it can enhance a lot of benefits for conservation and local community. On the other hand, there are some challenges, and there's one of it is commoditization, which means that basically tourism and nature conservation becomes a commodity. That also undermines sometimes good management. That there is a lot of development. So while planning your tourism infrastructure, be careful and plan to the extent that protected area, which is, I have to say, massive, you know, as compared to some sites in other parts of the world. It's big, it's a large protected area. So it can accommodate certain infrastructure, it can accommodate a certain number of tourists. That the point is that it's well planned. I had the pleasure of visiting some of the protected areas in Russia 2 years ago. I visited Kamchatka, and I heard of past experiences when visitation wasn't that well planned as compared to today, when we can see some positive impact on nature while the number of tourists is growing. And of course, depletion of resources is one of the massive challenges when it comes to tourism in protected areas. Tourism in protected areas is specific because it builds on preserved nature. So if there is no nature, there is less chance for tourism to thrive. So that tourism has to support nature. Basically, so brings me back to, this slide brings me back to where I started off. A responsible tourism in protected areas has to look into nature conservation because that's the primary objective. It has to generate some economic benefits, both for protected area authorities, the private sector who is involved, and local communities, and has to support tradition and local heritage. And I'm very pleased that I heard some of it in the previous presentation. It has to be aligned with local context. So really, I mean, if you're developing tourism in your geopark, then really look into what are the features. And I can say that one of the challenges for me that protected areas in Russia have is that they are so diverse and that they are so impressive that is really a big issue of promoting them the way to attract people and make sure that they are clearly communicated with potential visitors. And of course, it has to work toward building a conservation ethic, because tourism in protected areas is specific, it's not just visiting. So there are people who are simply spending their whatever resources, time on visiting nature, but mainly protected areas has something different to offer, so that tourism in protected areas is very specific, and that building ethic and ethical norms is very important when it comes to tourism in protected areas. And of course, looks into benefits, both into impacts, both positive and negative, and really tries to minimize a negative impacts. And this is my last slide, so I'm not taking much of your time. Here are some links that you can visit that I would really like to invite you to visit, where you can find more information about tourism in protected areas, lots of experiences from different regions, where you can join expert networks, and I'll be more than pleased to help you and support you in that, as our regional office works across the region, including the Russian Federation. And we very much look forward to having a sustainable tourism strategy for protected areas in the Russian Federation. Now that, as being already mentioned today, that the way how protected areas are perceived is going to change from being sort of an isolated islands of nature, which is not bad at all, but it excludes communities, to some new modern way of managing protected areas, which includes local communities and promotes local tradition and local heritage. So we stand ready to support. You can always reach out to us and try to share some experience, and also ask for some advice, and we'll be happy to help you with that. Thanks a lot. Спасибо большое за внимание. It was a real pleasure, even only online, but I hope that I'll have a chance to visit Toretau as one of the pearls along the necklace of protected areas in Russia, I have to say.
Вам тоже спасибо.
Thank you too. Alfred Agbashev, director of Youngentown Sanatorium. I am terribly sorry because most likely you have prepared the report, but unfortunately we won't be able to listen to it in full because I promised that we're going to finish at 6 p.m. And you see, it's the necessity of all the guests to get back home. That is why, can I kindly ask you to pronounce the most important points which you wanted to say without trying to develop this topic. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Nicholas, for, I hope that he hears us. Thanks to Nicholas for the information that he provided to us. We have been waiting for this information. Due to coronavirus, this matter has been postponed on and on. But the problem of geoparks is much deeper than we are discussing. We are talking about the industry of tourism, but tourism has to be educational. From the point of view of our Soviet experience, today the world is changing. The person is changing as well. And I believe that the territory of the geopark has to be some key areas where a person has to have a chance to have a dialogue with nature. It's a model of the museum, open-air museum, with geological, biological entities, history, archaeology, ethnographic, and he has to have a chance to spend time with people. Geopark is the space where a person who walks upon the land of the geopark is capable to finding himself. Well, in short, that's what I wanted to tell you. This is a great work that we are doing here. This is not only infrastructure, this is the territory which has to be a part of the world. And if we are talking about urbanization of projects, of connecting territories, I believe this is the key point of involving urbanized world, just like a window into the nature. Open air museum, and it's a window into this world. Thank you. I do enjoy this formula of a person finding himself. And most of all, I really enjoy, maybe that's my just discovery, my personal, maybe I'm wrong. We will manage to develop the interior tourism at a point when economic levers are going to be working properly, and when they're going to enable people who love their motherland to share their motherland, and when it will enable them to earn money by sharing this land they really love, then things are going to start working. I understand that it is complicated to accomplish it on the territory of separate, isolated territory of a geopark or something like this, and I understand that it's a great challenge standing before Russia, but only at that point things are going to develop in reality, and I really wish us to achieve this. Thank you very much to all of you.